Hey Joe.
Hey Vic.
How good a time did we have at the conference recently?
I love going to a conference.
So do I. I love listening to all these amazing speakers and their knowledge and their wisdom and the inspiration they give you.
Yeah. I do. Don't you feel like, though, as amazing as it is, I don't know if this is just me. It can't just be me. I'm sitting there and I'm going, it's great. Love this. How the fuck do I implement that?
Yes, I am with you on this.
Awesome.
Because it's all very well getting really excited and feeling motivated and feeling pumped and going, oh, owners need to know this. And they do. They absolutely need to know all of the stuff. And I think it's essential, especially what we learned that weekend. However, there seems to be a big whopping gap between learning it and being able to get clients on board with the concepts behind it. So where do we go from here as dog trainers?
In all honesty, I don't even think I have a very succinct answer, because I think so much needs to change. And for me, this just highlights the big gaping hole of things that need fixing in this industry. Because if we can't get the messaging right to the professionals, i.e. ourselves, the attendees of these conferences and these courses and all the stuff like that, if we can't get that messaging right and going, here's some amazing knowledge, now go forth and do this, like that bit doesn't happen. The go forth, do this is not there.
No. And when the interpretation is kind of as best as it can be, right? So you've got that knowledge, you've got that motivation, and you try and bring it in somehow. So whether that looks like creating a whole new service based on that thing, that particular element, or whether you incorporate it in an existing service or element, when it doesn't land well, now that could be for several reasons. It could be because there's a lot of industry jargon, which we have talked about on here before, and it's just lost in translation. So it could be that. Or it could be that we're trying to bring it in a way whereby there is no connection for the owners. Like they're going, great, we love your enthusiasm about this, but how does it actually help with the problems that we've got? Yeah. And let's face it, when it comes to pet dog owners, in the words of Jo Rosie Haffenden, when she says people just want their dogs to settle, be indifferent with people, wait outside a shop, like be in a pub and they don't bother anybody, quickly say hi to a dog and then walk off. Like with those things in mind, and okay, I have just used like a few examples there, but pretty much that's what pet dog owners are looking for. Where does all this, I'm going to call it fancy stuff, but I don't mean it in a that kind of way. Where does it come in? How do we get those messages across in a way whereby people are going to be on board? Because we first of all straight away get frustrated with owners for not buying the new thing. We've done this course, we've put this new thing on, no one buys it. And so then it's the client's fault. And we're back to that cycle of going, it's their fault. But we need them on board with it to make a viable business. So whose job is this then to be able to get this bit of the jigsaw puzzle, which I feel like is missing out of the equation?
Well, there's a huge bit missing, but do you know what I used to do after I'd come back from conferences like this, or if I'd studied something new? And I'm going to lean more in on the conference bit, because like I said, you're in that room, aren't you? You're in that space where the conversations are typically about what you've just heard, and you're with other professionals, so you're having that conversation. So what I used to do is I was already doing long-term programs with people. And I remember the first time I heard Sarah Fisher and the ACE free work, I was like, oh my God, this is epic. Absolutely love this. I hadn't done her course. I had literally seen her speak. And this was a few years back now. And I would literally shoehorn it in to my program and be like, oh, I've just come back from this conference, but I never positioned it like that to the client. I would somehow go, ooh, I almost want to test this thing out, and how can I do it? Rightly or wrongly, this is what I did, being brutally honest. And I remember working with a couple of clients at the time, and I was trialing out this free work. And for all intents and purpose, I'd kind of forgotten what it was supposed to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like in the moment, I was like, oh my God, yeah, like I'm totally on board with this. And then all I could really remember when I went away was you set up some stations, almost enrichment stations is how I perceived it. And that's essentially what I did. And I remember having this one dog that was very barky and fence aggressive, let's say, with the neighbour's dog. So they used to really go at it at the fence. So I was like, let's use some free work as some distraction stations. But I remember essentially shoehorning in, because I didn't fully understand what it was. And there's going to be people listening here going, oh my God, that's not how you use it. And that's not what you're supposed to do with it. And it's horrendous. And maybe even how dare you even do a trial and error on a live case. But I was like, well, where else am I supposed to do it? Like, I don't understand how I can absorb that knowledge and then without paying for another bleeding course to go on and get on my ass down to Tilly Farm and do that whole thing. I was like, I don't know how to fit it in. So I'm going to try it. And I learned almost on the job, if you will, because again, you get these snippets of how these different, I don't even know what you'd call it. I don't really want to put it under a method category, but you get snippets of this information and this knowledge, don't you, to go, oh, if you was to do this, look what we've learned about the dog. Look at how you can see how they're standing and how that's affecting them, and then their body language or chat. I was like, I get it. I totally get it. But how do I deliver it? How do I do it? It's like learning the theory without the practical application. And I think that's what's drastically missing. This is going to be an interesting episode. She's chugging water down now to try and keep the coughs at bay.
I am.
You are. But do you know what I mean? Like how I still struggle with it now, because even you all know I'm doing my uni course, and I sit there in some of these lectures and I'm like, it's great. The information's interesting. I enjoy the information. But how do you apply it?
So is it a case of that these conferences would be best positioned as, if you want to learn more about this snippet of an hour that we've got, like, so you've got an hour to absorb that information. If you want to know more about it, you need to do my next course. And then we go all in on that one thing. Like, would that be the logical way to bring something like that in?
Well, I mean, it'd be better.
It would be better, but how scary is that from the trainer's perspective to go, right, forget everything else you do. Now let's bring in this brand new thing and only focus on that one thing. But arguably, with all the stuff we talk about and niching and all of that, maybe that would be the way to go. Maybe we should look at these conferences like, what part of that do we really love, and what part of it is it's inspiring us and motivating us to learn more about it so that we can just do that thing potentially.
Yeah, you've got to, and I think this comes back down to having a strategy and a purpose for your business. So we go to numerous amounts of business conferences where you're seeing so many different speakers talking about loads of different things, and it's all business related, and we absolutely love it. And we have to look at it and go, that was really interesting. I'm going to park that for now, and I'm going to put that in the plan for next year, maybe.
Yeah, but the thing I would say about the business conference, for me, the big difference is it's all relevant. Every part of it is relevant, but you have to get the journey bit right. So if you do it too early, it could be that you're putting all of your energy into something that you're not ready for yet.
Yeah.
So I feel like when you look at it from a business perspective, there's all these little building blocks where you go, I need them all, but when I need them, I need to know when I need them, and I need to know what kind of order to do them in for me, for that business to be right. When it comes to the dog training, I feel like some of these elements, or like, can't think of the word, but some of these disciplines are so different from one another, and the direction you would take if you went down the free work route to if you went down the, I don't know, like hoopers or agility, like, okay, they could be interlinked because everything is body movement and everything's observations and, you know, pain related and all that kind of stuff. And I get that because it's sports and that, but I don't know. I think you need to be a specialist in one or the other rather than trying to be that jack of all trades thing that we talk about on here.
But I think, I don't think that's too dissimilar to what you're saying about the business stuff as well, though, because ultimately it's knowing your interest in which way you want to go. And you could arguably go, right, I'm going to go all in on the free work side of it. I like the agility and the hoopers thing. I'm going to park that for a later date maybe, or see how I can weave it in. And I think this is where, for me, and this is the conversation we were having earlier outside of this podcast, was, are we breeding internally in the industry, are we breeding our own version of imposter syndrome? Because you're almost being hit with all of these different specialisms and these disciplines, and we feel like we need to be an expert in all of them. And arguably, and I don't know how I feel about this, but my gut feel is that these accrediting bodies and these course providers are ultimately doing every single one of us a disservice. It is a really strong claim to make, but I do genuinely believe it. I do think they are doing us a disservice, not by not offering business support, but by offering a crappy version of it. It'd be better to not do it. Like, why would you? It'd be like us in Canine Business Academy offering dog training. Like, no, we don't want to be part of that. This is the bit that we're really good at, the business bit, the strategy bit. Let's go all in on that. We're not going to pretend to be able to teach you how to be a dog trainer. Like, there are other providers out there.
But let's face it, we could absolutely do that.
Yeah.
Like, if we sat down tomorrow and said, do you know what, let's bring in a new part of this business without thinking of the strategy behind it and going like, I know what people could really do with it is an all-in-one. So they could do with business and the thing. And then that dilutes the rest of it though. Because if we're going to go all in on that dog training part, surely then the business part sort of gets left behind a bit and vice versa. So I think whenever there's too many things going into one pot, too many ingredients in one pot, it just dilutes too much of it.
Yeah.
And that's from making all the mistakes that we've made over the years to discover that. That's how we feel about it. But I do wonder how we are supposed to, like, because you almost get that elation and buzz when you're there in the room with all these like-minded people and everyone's like, oh my God, this is amazing, light bulb moment. And even like we were like at one point or a few points throughout that conference, like jaw open, wow, this is amazing. And it is. And the knowledge coming out of these people is just, it's just another level, right?
Yeah, it's incredible.
But then what? You walk away from it and then you go, wow, I'm really overwhelmed with all that information now because I really don't know what to do with it. And then do you do anything with it? Do you just leave it and hope one day you can, like, so there's so many ways that people deal with this kind of elation aftermath of a conference or a course or something like that in dog knowledge stuff that I don't know. I don't know whether each speaker should be providing their perspective on how it can be introduced into a business. I don't know whether that's the answer.
Yeah. Do you know what my gut feel is on this? And I obviously don't know because I've not had conversations like this, but my gut is speakers, again, within this industry are not looking at their own craft as a business. And by that, I mean they've not thought strategically about the messaging they're putting out.
And what they're hoping somebody's going to get from it. Yeah.
It's like, I've got this bit of knowledge. This is amazing. Let's share it. But without the thought process, like it's not fully thought through. It's almost like the thought just stops.
It's a little bit like when dog trainers offer a workshop for somebody to do a couple of hours of loose lead walking, for example. Oh, yeah, that will get people through the door. That's an easy sell. That's a couple of hours of my time. But then what for the customer? Then what are they supposed to do with that information? Just have absorbed it all and be able to just do it every day? Because realistically, they're not going to do that. So it's a bit like that, isn't it? Going like, come into this area, hear me speak for an hour. Oh my God, you're amazing. Now what? Now what happens?
Yeah, that's it. I just don't think it's thought through. I think it's thought through for the moment.
Yeah.
This is what the stage time is going to be about. This is what the theme of the conference is going to be about. This is what the theme of the workshop is going to be about. Here's some information.
Do with it what you will.
Yeah, pretty much.
Almost. Yeah.
And for me, it's a failing.
Yeah. I think that it causes more problems sometimes.
Yeah. I said to you, I was like, I feel like I'm a confident enough person that I'm happy to command a room of people. Don't get me wrong, it'd be like shit scary to stand up on a huge stage, but I feel like with a bit of practice I can do it. I'm ready for it. But I would never, at this moment in time anyway, I can confidently say I would not feel comfortable getting up on stage and talking about dog knowledge.
And why do you feel?
I don't know, because it's ridiculous, really. It is absolutely ridiculous. When I've been doing it for a decade, I've gone to all the conferences, I've studied it, I haven't counted how many dogs I've helped, but I know it's a lot. Do you know what I mean? Like for all intents and purposes, like I know my stuff. But I think there is something in this industry that we are breeding amongst one another to almost go, you don't know as much as me. And I think it comes down to potentially, again, the fact that we are being met with these speakers, we are being met with these courses, that there's no thought through journey. It's here's this, that's it. Here's this, that's it. And then they keep adding on different things. Like you even look at providers like, I think Dog Training College are probably a good example. They've got their core certification program, which I think is a 6-month online thing. And then you can buy this webinar about this thing and then this webinar about this thing. And do you know what I mean? It just suddenly tacks on a load of additional stuff. I'm like, oh, right, okay. And then you might hear somebody like Mike Shikashio, who we love, go and do his course so you can learn a little bit more about reactivity. And then you might go and do this other thing because then that's accredited with ABTC and you want to do that thing. And it's like, where does it stop? Like where, like already the overwhelm in trying to get into the industry and trying to learn the stuff, but then to stay in it. And do you know, it's draining. It's really, really draining.
And I can see why someone coming into the industry has no clear path because of all these different options of different things you can do. But with nobody specialising really in any one of them, it's just a bit of this and a bit of that. And so, of course, they're going to come in and go, oh, I need to do that for that arm of the business. I need to do that for another arm. I need to do that for another arm. And I can't be not accredited, but I can't be a valid dog trainer. I can't call myself a dog trainer unless I've got all of these things to show for it.
Yep.
And say I've done that course and say I've done the other. When actually, do you really want to do them?
Yeah, exactly.
Are they things which really drive you? Are they things that you're seeing around you that everybody else is doing and you feel like you have to do them? Because that's a question to ask yourself, I think.
Yeah, and I honestly don't think people know the answer because I think it's such an expected thing. I won't say it's expected when you come into it, but you very quickly adopt that thought.
Yeah, but if all the providers are offering so many different parts of the course, like they're trying to cover, like ideally, like someone comes in and just focuses on aggression. So go to Michael Shikashio. Like all of his stuff, just absorb it and go all in on that. Amazing. But no, it's not taught for us to do that. It's taught for us to get a bit of that and a bit of this and a bit of the other.
Yeah. It's like nothing, I don't know, it's like nothing fits together. It's like we've got this massive puzzle piece, but even when you put all the pieces together, it doesn't create the end. It doesn't fit. You don't end up with a nice pretty picture at the end of it.
No.
It doesn't fit.
You've got a zebra's head with a lion's tail, basically. I'm thinking of like a wildlife scene.
I like it. But, and then, oh God, I don't even want to go into it. I do want to go into it, I don't. These business modules in what these providers are giving. And again, I'm like, I just wish you wouldn't. Because to me, it's clear that this isn't your bag.
Do you know what it reminds me of a little bit is, you know, that thing where we get really frustrated when vets try and give dog training advice, and vice versa. Some dog trainers might try and give vet advice, but in my position when I was doing that kind of thing, I would never give vet advice. I would be like, no, it's not my place to say. This is my perspective, and with my dog, like, I would do this. The same with nutrition. Like, I raw feed, but I'm not going to tell anyone else to do that because it might not work for their dog and it might not work for them. So this is what I do. This is the benefits for me, but go and research it for yourself. It's a bit like that though, isn't it? It's like, if you're a vet, just do your vet stuff, unless you're a vet behaviourist and you know a bit more. But it's that, isn't it? It's like, yeah, we're this course provider, but we can give you a little bit of that business stuff. And then, of course, what does that do is it makes people think that's all there is to know.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what their businesses are built off, very shaky foundations of a little bit of knowledge.
Very shaky, yeah. And again, unfortunately, and I appreciate this may sound like a full-on rant at all these providers, but it's like, just do the thing that you do really well. And if that's providing education on all the dog knowledge, go all in on it. Like, be that thing. But I think the failing part of the business element, and again, I appreciate that this could just sound incredibly biased, because of course we are the business coaches. Why would we say it's any good? I mean, I hope everybody knows, and I don't even know why I'm caveating it, but I hope you all know that are listening, that if someone is doing something incredibly well, we will shout about it from the rooftops.
Yeah.
Like, if it needs calling out because it's epic, absolutely we will, because why wouldn't you? But I think what is frustrating is, for me, it's a failing on the industry. It's not on any one particular provider. It seems to be something that we are inbreeding to go, oh, well, because they're doing that, we'll do that. And then this is just how everybody's done this dog business stuff for the last 30 odd years. So it's still relatively new in the grand scheme of things. So we don't need to be keeping up with the times as much. We just do this thing that everybody has always done. Because then, shock horror, that's why everybody seems to have 1, 3 and 5 session packages. Shock horror, that's why there's always 6 and 8 week puppy classes. Like, there's not that much difference. You could go out and look and go, oh, you're doing something really different. And again, it doesn't even need to be that different. It's just how it's positioned and how it's put together, and it's your magical thing that you're putting out, but it's not magical because it's a copycat of everything that everybody's doing, right down to the messaging. So there's nothing to differentiate you from anybody. So we then moan as business owners, nobody wants to come and work with me. Nobody wants to spend any money. Clients are really annoying. Why can't they just say no? Oh my God, if I hear that one more time. Why can't they just tell me? If it's a no, it's a no. I'm fine if it's a no, but just tell me. Like, that's not on them. Sorry. That's on you. That's on something that you're doing. But then where is this? Because there's got to be a falling down somewhere, isn't there? Like, and this is where it's still, when you really stop and think about it, there shouldn't be such a thing as imposter syndrome when it comes to dog knowledge. There shouldn't be it, because the education out there is epic.
It's better than so many industries, I would say.
It is constantly
amount of stuff
evolving. Yeah, it is incredible. So why have we got people constantly, it's not like an ad hoc random thing, constantly is imposter syndrome being thrown around.
And it's not just people that are new to the industry, it's people that have been in it for years. People who've done it for as long as we've done it, you know. Coming up to 20 years for me, I'm like, you could absolutely still feel it. And probably because there's so much more choice coming through, so much more, you know, science-based stuff coming out that we're discovering every day. And we know that that's a factor. We need to start thinking about this consideration for the dogs. Great. But look what that's doing. And look what, I don't know even if these providers are looking internally or stepping outside and looking in, because it's the way it's always been done as well. So like, you almost go like, let's let's have the view of almost like overhauling everything and going like, do you know what, it'd be really good for like somebody who's not in the dog industry at all, just to look at this like a business and dissect it and praise it if it is working really well, or just pick it apart a little bit. But there's no, I don't know, it's like that resource guardy thing probably comes in again to it, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Without a shadow of a doubt. And do you know what, when you were talking then, I was actually thinking, and we seem to think that regulation's going to make a huge difference. I can't see it.
I can't see it either.
Because in reality, how are you going to regulate it? Because arguably, some of these accrediting bodies, so let's say ABTC, how many people out there are not following ABTC's code of ethics or code of conduct or whatever it's called? And how would they know?
Yeah. Occasionally they get called out. There are people that sort of say, oh, so-and-so's not doing what they should be. But is that the way it is being managed?
And again, like if we're in an industry where you've got to whistle blow all the time, it's like, come on. If you're spending time doing that, then you, in my opinion, you're not doing enough on your own thing. You're not.
Yeah.
I always hate the phrase like stay in your own lane, but I also kind of mean it.
I think it's relevant though. It's totally relevant.
I do struggle with it. The more and more I hear talks about regulation, and the more I'm actually looking into it as part of like my dissertation stuff as well I'm doing for uni, I actually don't see, there's very few regulated industries that do it very well, because it's so tricky to manage it. There's not enough resources. You'd have to be consistently checking up on someone to make sure that everything's being adhered to if you're going to go big. And if you're on about regulating an entire industry, how are you going to do that? So even I was looking at it from, as part of my dissertation with, because I'm looking at the relationships between vets and trainers and behaviourists, and why they wouldn't necessarily work together. Now, in the veterinary industry, I've got to try and remember my facts here, RCVS, like the Royal College Veterinary Surgeons or School, I forget what it is. They are apparently regulated. However, you, for example, could go and open up a veterinary practice as the owner of the veterinary practice, and the RCVS wouldn't be able to check in on your regulation because you're not associated with them. But you can still have a veterinary practice. So how are you going to be regulated? So your staff that you may bring in, like your vet nurses, could be RCV, RVC, bloody acronyms, that accredited, but doesn't mean the practice has to be.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
So it's always going to fall down.
It's always going to fall down because there's not enough people to do it. And again, like for me, that this breeding of imposter syndrome is just how can we make it better? Because even when
So it's always
I
going to
talk to fellow cab people, I say fellow, I'm not a cab. I was working towards being a cab, and then I've decided I absolutely don't want that because it's too restrictive. Like you have to follow such strict guidelines. And for me personally, I'm going, I don't think I can help enough people with that, with those restrictions. And it is so restrictive. I'm like, I don't feel like I'd be able to be a very good behaviourist with actually having the title of a clinical behaviourist, which is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Yet ultimately, I would say that's what I was striving towards, to almost combat that imposter syndrome. And I would be lying if I said, I'm confident enough that I could talk to any member of the public. I could stand up in my uni class and actually give a lecture on behaviour. And do you know what I mean? I am so confident in my knowledge. Yet as soon as I found out that there was an in-person assessment on the cab route, I thought, oh God, I'm not going to get it right for what they want. Because it's so strict.
Yeah. It almost feels like jumping through hoops and it's red tape and stuff.
It's a ridiculous amount of hoops. A ridiculous amount of hoops.
For what? For what outcome?
Exactly.
For cabs that can't earn enough money to, they're not even earning a living wage. So how does that help anyone?
Yeah. Like you're not supposed to be practicing whilst you're still studying, but you need to get so many cases under your belt. I'm like, well, how am I supposed to do that if I'm not actually going out and working then? It's like, I fail to understand how we are creating an industry that's supporting one another. And if anything, internally, we're just tearing it all down.
And we haven't even gotten to methodologies or anything like that.
Oh,
It's not even entered this conversation. But
all of that is part of that imposter syndrome, isn't it? Like half the reasons we hear and we see all the time that people don't want to put their face out there is for fear of getting judged by a peer.
Yeah.
Not the public, not a potential client. Fear of being bashed by another member within the dog training industry.
Yeah, because again, let's face it, the public they're not aware of all of this stuff that goes on. Because whenever we talk to friends or family about all of the divisive nature of this industry, they're like, oh, really? What's that all about then? Absolutely clueless. But we're doing all of this and we're saying it's all for the public. And we're like, they're not even aware of any of this. We're doing it between ourselves. We're creating these battles and putting ourselves in these little boxes. For what? For who is that supposed to benefit? Or who's supposed to win? Who's supposed to lose? It's that, isn't it? And then if you win, do you feel better? Or do you...
What do you win?
Yeah.
Who wins? What are you classifying as a win?
Yeah.
Like, does it feel good to go on and tear somebody else down?
Yeah, well...
Because actually, I would argue that those people that are tearing other people down, like what are they doing to go out and actually go out of their way to try and do anything different, or go out of their way to try and help? Or is it just that safety net? I'll just quietly do my stuff, but then I'll keyboard bash away.
Yeah. No, it's very much like that conversation. We've just done an interview with Clara from Muzzle Movement, and keeping the successes quiet because of the fear of what people are going to say. Because, well, obviously they've made loads of money off the back of the XL bully ban and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, actually, like, they're to be celebrated, like creating an awesome business and providing a solution to a problem. Like, yep. I think, why don't we just look at it in that way rather than go, oh my God, look at them benefit from everything. It's not the right way that we should be doing things, because we are helping people, helping dogs. We all want the same thing. That's why we're in this. And then in doing that, we're trampling people down on the way. And it's just, it's really disappointing. And again, having been in this industry for so long and seeing all of these little trends and little things that have gone on over the years, and it's just like, really? We're like a load of playground kids.
Oh, yeah.
We should be better. And we're trying to make our little movement in this business bit to get that confidence back up and try in some small way to eradicate this imposter syndrome, which we can't do by ourselves because there's a bigger picture here.
Yeah. But that imposter syndrome, it is going to show up time and time again in so many different walks of life. It's going to show up so many different ways in your business, because if you've got imposter syndrome on delivery, well, then you're never going to work with a client. Or if you've got imposter syndrome on, I can't possibly put myself out there for fear of being bashed publicly, well, then how are the public going to find you?
Yep.
How are the public going to connect with you? This is your potential audience. This is the people that are going to pay your bills. And I think I don't even want to say we forget it. I don't think it enters our mind a lot of the time, going, if we don't do these things and if we keep behaving the way that we do, then how, it all boils down to, like, how are your bills going to get paid?
Yeah.
And actually, there's a question on, and it could be mildly controversial, I don't know, who, if you're in a partnership or if you've got somebody you're living with, who's paying the bills? Because does that almost excuse your behaviour sometimes?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Are you being supported so it's okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
Because if you're living with someone and they're the main earner, and then your bills are sorted so you can almost hobbyist, well, then, yeah, you've got all the time in the world to go and bash somebody else or do all the CPD and keep learning and all of that, because the pressure's maybe not on. Arguably, rightly or wrongly, I don't know, but
all of these are factors.
I think it'll be
to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think like imposter syndrome is it's an overarching issue with so many little sub parts of it that are bubbling away in the background.
Yeah. I almost think it's just too easy an excuse now to not do something. Or to own it, almost like you live up to the label. I've got imposter syndrome, so I can't do that.
Yeah. It's a good thing to hide under, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah.
It's almost become normalised.
Yeah. Ooh, we've gone a bit deep, haven't we?
We have gone deep. Don't feel like we've done a deep episode in a while.
No, we
though.
haven't actually.
No, it's really got to us, hasn't it? These last few weeks of like just really thinking about. Hold on, we're failing each other here because again, like this. I know we're circling back over old ground we've just covered, but we are failing, and something needs to change.
Yeah, and I think it's the conversations that we're having with our clients as well. In this imposter syndrome is stopping them moving that business forward. So of course, it's our job as coaches and mentors to uncover what's causing this imposter syndrome, and then we're kind of like, we're not there to coach them through dog training. We're not there to give them any more skills. And actually, I think invariably when we have this discussion, the imposter syndrome isn't about the lack of knowledge and skills. It is about that judgment. And I think every conversation I've had actually with a client that's worried about being visible or showing a bit more of themselves is usually because of that judgment thing, and isn't because of the skills, but almost it's hidden behind the skills bit because that's an easy thing to say.
Yeah.
I feel like I need to know more first. I feel like I need more skills first.
Yeah.
And it's like,
but where does that come from?
Do you really? Do you actually? And I suppose for us, we do challenge that, don't we? And we're kind of like, do you really? Because as far as we're concerned, like, it sounds like you know your stuff. Like, I've got no worries from what I'm seeing of you, because we will follow people's social media and we'll, look into all of the stuff where we can find out about them. And we're like, from what we're seeing, that isn't a problem. And how you conduct yourself, that isn't what we're seeing at all. So where does that come from? And it's our job to, like we always say, like, unpeel a person like an onion to find out all of these little nuances, all of these little blockers. And until we do that, we can't move that business on, because it could be restricting so many aspects of their life. And once you free someone of it, like one of our clients that we were working with a few months ago said it was like a cloak, unveiling himself like a cloak, to be free enough and confident enough to go, no, this is who I really am and this is what I really want to do. And until we dig into those things, we're never going to get past it. So I do feel like that's why we always say we don't really know what our role is, because we are a bit therapists, we are mentors, we are coaches, we are business, we've got all this business knowledge, but there's much more to it than that. And it's such a multifaceted thing, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. But even when you're saying there, like, I need to do another course, it's like, for what purpose? And where does that come from?
Where is that sitting in your goals then?
Yeah.
Like, what part does that play?
And arguably, like, if you break it down, so let's name some of them, what's on top of my head. So if you were to do a dog training college course and you were to do PACT, I would argue there is a massive amount of crossover.
Yeah, I was going to say.
A massive amount of similarities.
Quite a lot the same there.
The only key difference being that PACT gets you the accreditation with ABTC if you pay for the membership. Then you'll have courses like SOCS with their Behaviour Bible one. And again, epic in itself. There will still be some crossover because you've got the groundwork theory that has to be covered.
Yeah. And that groundwork theory is covered in every single course you ever do, isn't it?
So realistically, and when you're looking at it logically, how many courses do you need to do that are exactly the same, and you obviously get like a different nuanced, and their version, whoever they are, you'll always get their interpretation of something, which arguably is what you're investing in my opinion, because you're interested to hear their thoughts, not necessarily all the other stuff. The amount of courses I've purchased over the years going, I've known all of that because I've done it to death. Because of course you do, don't you? You buy, of course. And maybe I've just learned one thing that's different.
Yeah, and it usually is that, isn't it? I've taken one bit of nugget of information away from that, and that's what's really resonated with me.
But for some reason, we don't look at it in that way of going, oh, that was really useful because of that one thing. We go, I still don't know enough. So I'm going to go and do another one of the same to get another golden nugget, and then another, and then another. And so where does it end?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying stop learning. I love learning. Like I'm still in uni. Why? But I am. And I'd be lying if I said I didn't enjoy the learning. Don't enjoy the assignments. I think they're a waste of time. But I do enjoy the learning. But I also know that I don't know how to articulate it. I know I'm not doing it for my business. I'm doing it because I'm interested in learning.
Yeah. Yeah, it was weird actually, because when we did that conference, I was like, this is the longest it's ever been since I attended a dog knowledge conference, because the last one was Woof in 2019. I think you said the same, because we were at that conference, weren't we, without knowing each other back then. But that was, and that actually, touching on Woof, that was a bit revolutionary for a dog conference, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was quite different and had quite a different approach, really. I mean, the same principle, like different speakers doing a little bit, giving you a taster and everything. Yeah. But yeah.
I mean, and I get it. Like, let's face it, like there's only so much you can do with a conference. The idea is to share as much knowledge as possible in a short space of time, so it's compacted. My thing is, they're great, but it's like, what next? It's that bit that is missing.
There's no logical next step.
There isn't a logical next step
from it, is there?
And this is where I just think, because nobody is thinking strategically about their business, and I think sometimes maybe when we say the business, you may think it's literally the money exchange service. It's not. It's that whole identity. It's like, if you are stepping on stage to deliver a talk, it's like, right, so this is my job to give you this information. You are now the student, I'm the teacher, and this is the process you need to follow. So even if, like you say, it's just that little tag on the end to go, if you want to find out on how to apply this, go here, find out more. Yes, okay, it may be another purchasable thing, but that's okay, because remember, it's a business. Or here's some free stuff. Here's how this talk is going to help you right now. I think it's something that we are always incredibly mindful of in anything that we're doing, workshop-wise, or if we end up speaking at something or whatever it may be. We always want to give you like an actionable thing at the end of it. In fact, we've done it in the book. Like, there are things to do as you go through. There is an
like
actionable
a workbook, really, isn't it?
It's like, here's some knowledge. This is how you apply it. Here's some knowledge. This is how you apply it.
Yeah. And if you want to find out more, listen to the podcast.
Yeah.
Join the Facebook group, all the stuff.
Yeah.
And you'll be in our world then. And I think it is that next. I think actually, sort of summarising this episode is whose job is it to be able to apply that next step? Like, where does that direction come from? And what is the purpose of those talks? Like, what do we want someone to do with that information?
Yeah. I mean, arguably, in an ideal world, it would be amazing if these accrediting bodies, if all of these course providers, in fact, I might do this as a bit of an exercise when I've got a bit of time. It'd be interesting to see if these course providers and accrediting bodies do have like an actual strategy that you can see, that you could probably figure it out, because you should be able to spot a strategy, like a decent strategy. Yeah. If you look at most businesses, you'll be able to see what they're doing. But this is the question for me. I was like, I just don't know if a lot of them are running it like a business, but more of what people think a business is, which is literally just an exchange of cash for your service.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to evolve, does it?
It doesn't. It's nothing
evolve
more.
With the times of the learning and the knowledge. Those accrediting bodies don't seem to keep up with that evolving landscape.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
It's just a very basic model of buy this, get that, and that's it. There's no It doesn't appear to be anyway. It doesn't feel like there's any kind of long-term plan or bigger vision. And
We'd love to
mission
know that
around
if
it.
there is, though, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
We'd love to have a conversation about it further.
Yeah. If there is anybody who is listening and works at any of these providers, like, reach out.
Come have a chat.
Yeah. I just find it really interesting because I just think that there's so much opportunity, and this hasn't even scratched the surface of what this industry is capable of.
Yeah.
We need to keep doing better. We need to keep pushing. But I think we need to keep questioning it as well and go like, hold on, check in with yourself, check in on your own actions. And that may come across as quite harsh, but I'm sorry, but we need to do it.
It's up to us to do the things to
check in on yourself and go like, I feel like I'm talking to my kids now, but I'm like, treat others how you would like to be treated. If you would not like that, then how dare you do that to somebody else? It's unacceptable. And this is what is breeding that imposter syndrome. And this is what is then breeding the public to not hear the amazing messages that this industry has got to share, because we're not getting that message in front of them because we're too busy publicly bashing one another. And your clients are seeing that. Every time you put up a post saying, oh, so-and-so's done this and so-and-so's done that, this is what I don't advocate for, this, that and the other, your clients are seeing that.
And this is where that stay in your lane comment, I think it's so relevant to it, because it is, isn't it? It's like, just do what you do even more amazingly.
Yeah.
Don't worry about what that person's doing.
No. Do what you do. Go and look after your clients. Go and make a change. Got a song in my head now. But go and, I don't know. I don't know where the thing needs to come from. We feel really passionately about this, but there's got to be something that we can stop. It is inbreeding of this imposter syndrome. It is. It's not coming from anywhere else. Nobody externally is saying you're shit.
No.
Your clients aren't telling you you're shit. So where's it coming from? And if it is internal, then we've got a big fucking problem on our hands.